More officers ambushed. We profiled the gunman who killed 3 and injured 3 more in Baton Rouge. Republican National Convention. Melania Trump takes the spotlight, promoting her husband. We have comprehensive coverage from our team in Cleveland. Coup attempt. The fallout after the Turkish military tries to unseat Turkey's president. And papal prayers. The Pope mourns the tragic loss of life in Nice, France. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Monday, July 18th, 2016. Good evening from Washington. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. Before we go to the Republican National Convention opening today in Cleveland, here are the latest headlines. The Baton Rouge community mourns the deaths of 3 police officers killed in a targeted ambush.
Buddy, all I saw when we pulled up and took around through the windshield, he had a mask on.
What led Gavin Long to gun down police officers in Baton Rouge, Louisiana Sunday, his 29th birthday? Investigators say the former Marine opened fire with an assault rifle before officers shot and killed him. Officials say the shooter knew exactly who he was targeting.
His prey was those police officers or any police officer that would have been in the area.
Fallen officers Montrell Jackson, Matthew Gerald, and Brad Garafola are being remembered for their service and dedication. The shootout comes nearly 2 weeks after the controversial deaths of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge and Philando Castile in Minnesota, both African-American men killed by police. Monday morning, Attorney General Loretta Lynch vowed to help heal rifts.
Now is the time to ensure that every American, everyone, under the sheltering arm of our Constitution, feels respected, feels supported, feels safe.
Police nationwide have been on high alert since 5 Dallas officers were killed by a gunman who expressed anger over the police shootings. That Dallas attack was the deadliest incident for law enforcement in the U.S. since September the 11th in 2001. Bishop Robert Munch calls for a diocesan-wide week of prayer and fasting as the Baton Rouge community works toward a lasting peace. Yet another acquittal today in Baltimore in the police custody death of Freddie Gray. Gray died a week after suffering a spinal injury in a police van, touching off protests and rioting in April of 2015. Lieutenant Brian Rice, who is white and the highest ranking of the 6 officers charged, was acquitted today on all charges. 3 earlier trials resulted in 2 acquittals and a mistrial. Prominent Baltimore lawyers say prosecutors should now question whether to even move forward with the last 2 trials. This week could mark a turning point in Donald Trump's bid to be president. He tries to unite the party at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. Our team coverage begins with Chief White House correspondent and political director Lauren Ashburn in Cleveland now. Lauren?
Brian, welcome to Cleveland. Behind me is the stage where Donald Trump will most likely become the next Republican nominee Thursday night. The anti-Trump movement made a last-ditch effort just a few minutes ago to have a vote on the rules, which may have unbound delegates. It was shut down. There has been only one major anti-Trump rally outside, about a half-mile away. Now, the news of the day, a change in schedule for Mr. Trump. He will make an unexpected swing through the convention hall tonight to support his wife, Melania, as she gives her speech. Her goal is to show the man behind the mogul, the family man who supports his children and cares for the thousands who work for him. And there are others tonight who will speak under the theme, Make America Safe Again, including Senators Joni Ernst of Iowa, Jeff Sessions of Alabama, and TV star Scott Baio. This week,
the Republican National Convention, an event few thought would see Donald Trump as a headline speaker, let alone its star. The Trump campaign says it's a chance to paint the often divisive candidate in a new light.
We want Americans to understand who Donald Trump the man is, not just Donald Trump the candidate. The composite of his career, not just from a business standpoint or a political standpoint, from a human standpoint as well.
Trump heads into the convention as one of the most unpopular major party nominees ever. Yet he will face the nation as the Republican Party's standard bearer.
The convention here is overwhelmingly pro-Trumpist on the floor of the delegations. The appointment of Governor Pence as his running mate has brought together some of the official Washington that doesn't know Trump as well.
The campaign was hard-fought and difficult for both Republicans and Democrats. But with just days to go before the nominees are finalized, some think there's still room for a third-party candidate.
We know that people are epically disappointed with the 2 outcomes that have come from both major parties this year. over 60% of Americans don't want another candidate to run.
The fatal shooting of 3 police officers in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on Sunday underscored the tension. Protesters have already been making their case on the issues.
There are a lot of people coming here to execute their First Amendment rights, and we're going to be supportive of that.
Police are taking extraordinary efforts to ensure all voices will be heard, but those efforts are keenly focused on the safety of the candidates, the public, as well as the police themselves. Bob Cusack is editor-in-chief of The Hill. Melinda Hennenberger, editor-in-chief of Roll Call. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Quite an exciting convention so far with that big rules vote. You know, Bob, it's interesting to note that Speaker Ryan spoke this morning at the Wisconsin delegation and made no mention of Donald Trump. The governor of Ohio will not step foot in the queue here. The Bushes are not here. How does this behavior hurt or help Donald Trump?
Well, in some ways it helps him because Donald Trump is the outsider, and he has run as an outsider throughout the primary, and I think he's going to run as an outsider because he can't unite the party completely. He's trying to do as best as he can, but overall, the Never Trump movement was just torpedoed on the floor, but it's going to continue because there are some Republicans who will just never support Donald Trump.
And so then it falls to moderates to help him. So the other thing that he has done recently is to make himself the law and order candidate. And while that unites his base, will that pull in those moderates that he is going to need to win the presidency?
It does certainly play to his base, but you have to wonder when he says something that really blames Barack Obama and blames the Democrats for some of these shootings, when he says something like how many people have to die because of a lack of leadership. There are Democrats who I think are gettable voters for Donald Trump, but he has to be really careful, I think, how he plays to those folks. So I don't know that he wants to go too far with blaming people in office now for these horrible shootings.
For the horrific things we've seen over the last several days, including the shootings in Baton Rouge. Bob, big night for Melania Trump tonight. She's speaking about her husband, and the goal is to really personalize him. In 2012, we had a big problem with Mitt Romney because people said that he seemed very stiff and he really didn't have that softer side. Do you think that Melania and all of the other Trumps who are going to be speaking at this convention about their dad and the man in their life, Mr. Trump, do you think that they will be able to change opinion about this man who many people say has a very divisive side to him?
Yeah, he's definitely hard around the edges, and I think that's the key moment of this convention. Can the family members, Melania, Ivanka especially, very good surrogates. We haven't seen Melania on the campaign trail a lot, but I think this is going to be a key moment. I'm sure there are going to be videos saying how great a father Donald Trump was and how great a leader he could be. I think it's a key moment because he's got to change some opinions. He's got to get more independents to back him. He's also got to get a few more minorities to back him. His numbers there are not very good.
What about you? As
woman
family, to woman.
I think that when you have your spouse speak for you, when you have a family member speak for you, it's a human credential. You say, here's if this person loves me that much, you've got to at least pay some attention.
My mother loves
me.
And
he certainly has numbers going for him. He has so many family members speaking, more than we've ever seen at any other convention. So there's volume.
Thank you so much. We just heard the gavel. I think they're starting to call people to order again after a recess. Bob Cusack, The Hill, Melinda Hennenberger, Roll Call, Editor-in-Chief. Thank you so much for joining us. Brian, we have much more to come from Cleveland, including an interview with Representative Marsha Blackburn, who was on the short list for Trump's VP slot and who is speaking tonight.
Thank you, Lauren Ashburn. We'll see you a little later. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Turkey's president vows to purge his country from the virus he says led to a failed coup. But NATO's chief calls on Turkey to respect the rule of law and democratic institutions. Wyatt Goolsby is here with more.
Brian, Turkey's prime minister is ordering all public servants and government employees on leave or vacation to return home and get back to work. Nearly 9,000 employees have been fired and more than 6,000 people have been arrested. This following a failed attempt to overthrow the government Friday night. Days after a failed military coup, Turkish President Recep Erdogan is cracking down on anyone connected to the violent uprising. Turkey has detained more than 100 generals and admirals. This former Air Force commander is accused of being the ringleader of the foiled coup, which left more than 230 dead. Erdogan says he won't rule out bringing back the death penalty.
We need to preserve the legitimate and democratic institutions.
The European Union is pushing for democracy amid Erdogan's crackdown. The EU commissioner believes the Turkish government is using the failed coup to target its political opponents. One of those targets is a Muslim preacher named Fethullah Gulen. Gulen is a political exile who now lives in Pennsylvania. Erdogan has labeled Gulen and his supporters a terrorist group who are responsible for Friday's attack. Gulen says there could be many motives for the coup, including political dissent, but he says he is not connected. Erdogan is calling for the U.S. to extradite Gulen, but Secretary of State John Kerry says they have yet to receive a formal request.
We have always said, give us the evidence, show us the evidence. We need a solid legal foundation that meets the standard of extradition in order for our courts to approve such a request.
White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest says the United States strongly supports the Turkish government and that the president will be in touch with President Erdogan. While the U.S. government has its differences with him, Turkey remains a key NATO ally in the Middle East in the fight against ISIS. Brian.
Thank you, Wyatt Goolsby. And the uncle of the man who killed 84 people in the French Riviera last week links his nephew to the Islamic State terror group. France held a countrywide moment of silence Monday, remembering the victims as anti-terrorism authorities questioned potential accomplices. That national mourning punctured by anger and political division as crowds massed on the Riviera seafront. They booed the visiting prime minister, whose socialist government faces criticism for failing to prevent the Bastille Day carnage. ISIS claims responsibility for that attack. France's interior minister says investigators find no sign yet that attacker Mohamed Boulel had links to a particular terror network. Pope Francis prays for the end of terror and death of innocents. The Holy Father expressing closeness with families and all of France, mourning the loss of lives, even of many children, in the Nice attack. At his Sunday Angelus, Francis says sorrow is great in our hearts for the massacre in the southern French city last week. He prayed that God disperse every plan for terror and for death so that no man dare spill more blood of his brother. Coming up, valor recognized decades later. A Vietnam veteran is awarded the Medal of Honor and returned to Cleveland. An inside look at the start of the Republican National Convention. On Monday, July 18th, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Brian Patrick. Decades after his acts of valor, a Vietnam veteran is honored today with the Medal of Honor. Charles Kettles was a helicopter pilot credited with saving the lives of 40 soldiers and 4 crew members on May 15, 1967. He kept flying back into danger to save them, able to take only a few at a time.
A soldier who was there said, "That day Major Kettles became our John Wayne." With all due respect to John Wayne, he couldn't do what Chuck Kettles did.
Major Kettles developed an aviation management program at Eastern Michigan University after the Vietnam War. Now we go back to Cleveland, where the Republican National Convention began today. Political Director Lauren Ashburn continues our team coverage. Lauren?
Brian, when I arrived at the airport today, wonderful people greeted me with signs saying, "Welcome to Cleveland," and then there were a lot of police officers with a lot of guns. This city is ready for this convention. Police want to make sure that the convention stays safe, but they also want to allow peaceful protests. Jason Calvi is going to continue our team coverage here in Cleveland.
Lauren, as these delegates gather here in Cleveland, thousands of protesters are also descending on the city. The recent police shootings in Dallas and now in Baton Rouge have raised tensions here. The protests began this weekend. No KKK, no fascist! More than 100 protesters marched through downtown Cleveland Sunday afternoon. Today, Cleveland's police chief says his officers are ready, and so far, things are under control.
There have been no real threats, either to the convention or to the city or to the Division of Police itself.
Cleveland has 1,500 police officers at the convention, plus 3,000 federal agents. Police have armored trucks, assault rifles, and bomb disposal robots. Several hundred Donald Trump supporters gathered today for the first major pro-Trump rally, a few of them openly carrying guns as allowed under Ohio law. Kansas's Secretary of State, a delegate here, says that's a good thing.
The Second Amendment says that we have the right to keep and bear arms. It's part of our freedom as Americans. And so while some people are a little bit surprised to see someone carrying a weapon openly, that's our right to do it.
The theme of today is Make America Safe Again. We've certainly seen many safety precautions put into place. Secret Service thoroughly inspecting each of our pieces of equipment, our cameras, our lights, all of our tripods, thoroughly inspecting all of our credentials to get in and then going through the standard metal detectors and the like. Lauren?
And Jason is also going to need a new set of earplugs because it is really loud here. On to the platform. For the first time ever, the Republican Platform Committee calls for a ban on late-term dismemberment abortion. Joining us now is the chair of this congressional panel, the select congressional panel, investigating Planned Parenthood, Tennessee Representative Marsha Blackburn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Why is that language so important?
I think it's so important because what we have uncovered going back over the past year is an industry that has grown up which sells baby body parts. And these procurement organizations, businesses, have made contracts with abortion clinics, and then it makes that woman who is aborting a baby and that fetus a profit center for both the abortion clinic and for the procurement business.
So it's quite something that it actually made it to the platform. You were the chair of the platform committee 4 years ago, and that wasn't even up for debate.
Right. That's right, because no one was aware that this had grown up. And, of course, after the videos came out just over a year ago, people started to say, wait a minute, you mean they are selling?
The videos that David Daleiden
shot.
That's right. The undercover meetings with Planned Parenthood executives.
That's right. And so it came to light that they were beginning to utilize this as a profit center. And so Congress, in October, passed a resolution, H.R. 461, to go in and do a deep dive on this. And I chair that select committee. And we're gathering the information of what is going on there. What we have found is that many times an abortion clinic will be paid maybe $75 per specimen. This is for heart, lung, liver, tongue, scalp, whatever. And then the profit center on that is $400-600 even more. And that's their profit they're selling to end users. So this middleman or the procurement organization is the one who transacts this business. They pay the abortion clinic and then they get a profit from the individual buying.
Will you be mentioning any of this in your speech that you are going to be giving here? Will you be talking about the abortion platform?
I am not in the speech. I'm going to be speaking Thursday night before Mr. Trump comes, and I'll be talking about how we unify. And, you know, this issue of banning the sale of these baby body parts is something that pro-choice, pro-life, they all agree. Medical researchers, individuals who really cherish having the organ donor program that has been so successful in the U.S., they want us to get to the bottom of what is going on with the selling of human tissue and parts.
Well, you're doing a fabulous job. You just released the findings of your report, and we'll be looking forward to more. We hope we can talk to you as the convention goes on.
The interim update is out, and people can get it at my website or go online.
Thank you so much, Representative Marsha Blackburn.
Up next, Hillary Clinton's message to the NAACP and the issues taking center stage at the Republican National Convention. Thank you for joining us on this Monday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. Hillary Clinton today pushes for criminal justice reform at the NAACP National Convention in Cincinnati. She says the recent string of shootings across the country makes it more difficult.
Watching the news from Baton Rouge yesterday, my heart broke. Not just for those officers and their grieving families, but for all of us.
Clinton says it's essential to repair the bonds between police and the communities they serve and protect. The Clinton campaign, though, is overshadowed this week by the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. Political Director Lauren Ashburn continues our coverage from Cleveland. Lauren?
Hi, Brian. Rebel delegates who opposed Donald Trump had quite a time here not too long ago, and we have some guests who are going to talk to us about exactly what all of these rules and platforms are. Maybe a little primer for those of us sitting at home who aren't quite sure what exactly is going on. Tim Carney is a political columnist, senior political columnist for the Washington Examiner. Elaine Kmark, senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, author of Primary Politics, Everything You Need to Know About How America Nominates Its Presidential Candidates. Tim, welcome.
Thank you.
Elaine, thank you so much for joining us. What just happened behind us?
So
it was chaos.
In addition to nominating a presidential candidate, the conventions make the rules for the party, including the future primary rules. And so what happened today was a big fight over the RNC rules. It was not about whether Trump was going to be a nominee. It was largely about how 2020 will go down. And the party had crafted a set of rules that they liked. There was a lot of conservatives who didn't like it. So what they wanted to do was get a vote on the floor of the convention with all, thousands of delegates down there. And they filed the paperwork to do it, but then in the end, the party chairman said, nope, you don't have enough signatures, and they killed it. There's a lot more that happened in between,
I know.
but
Well,
that's the short
Trump
story.
campaign was down there trying to make all of this happen. You have covered how many conventions? Did you say 11?
Well, I've
You've
been
to
to 11, and
Okay.
this is my third Republican convention.
Okay. Give us the historical perspective here. This convention so far, normal? Do we see rules fights like this? Nothing's normal about this campaign.
We always see rules fights like this, and the saying among rules experts is that the losers make the rules. And so that's what was going on this time. You had people who were really unhappy with the way the establishment Republican Party coalesced around Donald Trump, shut down any no Trump or dump Trump movements. And so they were planning for 4 years from now, and they wanted to change a variety of things having to do with the way Republican delegates are selected. They got shut down on the floor right now, too.
What do you expect, Tim, moving forward? Do you see more votes like this? What else is happening?
No, so I don't think there will be floor action. The question is, I saw one delegate, Ken Cuccinelli, who was former Attorney General of Virginia, at one point take his credentials and throw them on the floor and got talked into coming back and not just walking out of the arena. There's a lot of dissatisfaction. Some of these people down there, Morton Blackwell has been on the Rules Committee of every Republican convention, I think since they nominated Lincoln. He's been there forever. And to get totally shut down.
Political humor there.
A lot of grassroots activists who have always been part of the party feel this convention and the previous one that they totally got steamrolled by a very heavy-handed party. So going forward, you could see even more alienation of the grassroots conservatives from the GOP.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Elaine Kmark from Brookings Institution, thank you so much for joining us. Tim Carney, senior political reporter. Columnist, that's right. We get to hear your opinions from the Washington Examiner. Brian, back to you.
All right, thank you, Lauren. More from the convention tomorrow. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. We leave you tonight with a rendition of the national anthem from today's opening of the Republican National Convention.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the